Hey, it's BAO, and this is Coffee with BAO, where I chat with awesome people about their creative process, their cultural identity, and how they continue to grow as a human being. You can send me feedback, recommend a guest, or buy me a coffee at coffeewithbao.com. And I want to introduce you to my guest today. Today I'm hanging out with a fellow Asian American music fanatic. She's a DJ, an entrepreneur. Formerly, she's done commercial acting. She owned a clothing boutique and is a paralegal. We'll find out. She's also the founder of Prism DJs, which is an agency where you can book all-female DJs. So here's my friend, Tessa Young, aka DJ Tessa.
Hi! Hi, Bao. Hi, everybody that's joining us. Thank you for having me.
I'm super stoked to chat with you today.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I've always wondered whether any of your friends or family actually call you DJ Tessa.
No, not at all. just Tessa or Tess.
We
keep it real informal around here.
I kind of do sometimes, like in a funny way, like when I refer to you with Michael first and Natalie first, who introduced us.
The most amazing couple ever. I'm so happy they introduced us.
Okay, a little background.
I'm really lucky to have, well, they were a wedding client. I'm really lucky to have amazing wedding clients with super good taste in music. That's Michael and Natalie, the epitome.
Some more background. Michael and Natalie are some of my oldest friends from my childhood. They got married and Tessa DJ'd their wedding, and that's how we met. And the wedding was in Long Beach, where you are now, right? You're in Long Beach?
Yeah, I live in Long Beach now.
You know, we also have a Reno connection with some mutual friends in Reno, and you grew up in Reno.
Yeah. But you also used to play shows in Reno, right? And so that's how our mutual friends know you.
Yeah.
And I'm so surprised we didn't meet in Reno, but I'm glad eventually we met.
I love all of these disparate connections making our friendship.
It's a small world.
Did you grow up in Reno?
My formative years were in Reno. I considered myself growing up in Reno, but I was born in Torrance. I grew up in Harbor City in 92. I moved to Reno, Nevada, where I went to middle school and high school.
Oh, okay. So you were like a tween already when you moved to Reno.
Yeah.
So South Bay to Reno to South Bay.
South Bay to Reno to LA proper. Then to Long Beach.
Cool. So one thing I really enjoy about hanging out with you is that you're like ethnically ambiguous.
Yeah.
And you've told me that when you fill out paperwork, sometimes you can't decide whether to put in Asian or Latino.
Yeah. I'm like, do you check one box? Do you check all the boxes? So I'm half Chinese, quarter Mexican, quarter Italian. My dad's Chinese. My mom's half Mexican, half Italian. And currently I'm trying to fill out grant forms or even like health insurance forms. And I'm like, well, do I check all of them? Guess I'll check all of them. And so I just really try to confuse them. But then sometimes it's none of their business, right?
Yeah,
so
totally.
There's that option. It just depends on my mood.
So that's a really interesting combination of backgrounds. Can you tell folks a little bit about where your family's various components come from?
So my dad, he grew up in Hawaii. My mom grew up in Northern California. She grew up in Sacramento. But my dad's side of his parents, they came from Hong Kong. And my mom's side of the family, her father's family came from Napoli, Italy. And her mother's family came from Chihuahua, Mexico.
Wow,
I'm from all over the place.
I love that. That's so cool.
But they weren't traditional cultural parents, you know. It was just the traditions laid with their parents, but they took some of the traditions.
Yeah, tell me about that.
Like the red. I still got the red envelopes. We'll say that.
Ah, sweet. Yeah, I'm curious about your childhood and like what elements of which cultures you guys did retain, because obviously when. After some generations and when there are many influences, you kind of have to choose.
I feel that I've always identified as Asian because I feel like that's how people always perceived me. And especially, this is really sad, but it's just truth. When I was younger, people made fun of me for being Chinese. So I identified as Asian because that's how people saw me, But I am Asian, so there's that as well.
So it was kind of like a reaction to people's perceptions, forced more of that identity into your own personal perception.
For sure.
Wow.
For sure.
What other like cultural things did you guys do at home?
Oh, just the food.
Oh, that must have been awesome.
Yeah. The food, Chinese New Year's, we'd get dim sum, or when we went to Grandma and Grandpa's house, it was like Mexican food, Italian food. So we'll just say I have good taste in food as an adult.
What about like music as a person growing up? How did you get into that? Because now you're like steeped in music.
Yeah. So we always had music going throughout the house, and everyone had their own special type of music that they liked, right? So my dad, he was always listening to like the Beatles and the Beach Boys and the Turtles and things like that. So it was kind of like the oldies for him. My mom was definitely like a soul funk R&B person. So I was listening to Shaka Khan and Roberta Flack and Babyface and Anita Baker. And my sister was like, loved David Bowie. So I had loved everything my sister loved. So I loved David Bowie and Prince and Lenny Kravitz. And I think that all well-rounded me for all different styles of music. And then obviously growing up in the late 80s and the 90s, I have a lot of like 80s, 90s influence.
That's cool. I think I have a similar musical upbringing too with, my mom, my parents, and then my siblings who are older. Yeah. And then myself as I started discovering music in my teens also. And that was a whole different genre that neither of those other folks.
Oh yeah, mine was completely different. So we were venturing into Nirvana and Weezer and Smashing Pumpkins and Stone Temple Pilots. But then I also loved Biggie and Snoop, and I was watching Yo MTV Raps all the time. So then, that's just piling on more different genres. But as an adult, and when I started DJing, that all really helped me to read a crowd and be like, oh, they're going to like this soul and funk, or they're going to like this rock alternative music.
Do you remember when you like got super duper into music? Like when it became like part of your identity?
Yeah, my life. Yeah, part of my identity. Yeah, I think it was going to like warehouse shows as a teenager. I was going to like punk shows, metal shows, industrial shows, underground hip hop shows. Everything was so underground. Those experiences really developed my love for music and all kinds of different music.
Cool.
As one of the rugged little backpack girls with size 34 pants and an extra large shirt and a flannel. That was me.
Yes. How many pairs of Jinkos did you own?
Oh my God. Actually, I had more Levi's that were 34. I would get 34 size and then just cut off the bottoms and fray them.
That's wild. So high school in Reno must have been interesting. I wonder how it was in, the 90s. Now I go there, it's like super supportive of arts and culture, and it's pretty diverse.
It was not at the time.
Yeah.
Well, there were some like underground arts and culture things happening. Like I was telling you, we had all the punk, metal, hardcore shows coming through Reno. So, I mean, that's cool to be able to have that. But where I grew up and where I went to high school, I'm appreciative for every moment, but I think it was challenging as a minority growing up there because it was mostly Caucasian there.
Yeah. Shout out to Reno. I love Reno.
Shout out to Reno. I love you guys, Reno. There's bad memories and there's good memories.
Yeah.
We'll go through some of them in the conversation, maybe.
So after high school, you studied to be a paralegal, and I'm curious whether that was like a panic, like, I don't know what to do, I got to choose something, or whether you actually had. Did you have some inkling of interest in legal stuff already?
No, I thought I was going to be a fashion designer. That did not happen. So that was actually an interesting story because when I graduated from high school, I graduated early. I was 17 and I started working at Aaron Brothers, the art and framing store.
Yeah.
And I was not getting along with the coworkers, but my manager really, really liked me and she liked my work ethic. And she's like, well, my husband is looking for a secretary at his law firm. Would you be interested in that? I think you'd be a good match. And I was like, oh, yeah, sure. I was probably like 17 going on 18. So they ended up hiring me right away. By 18, I was already a secretary at a law firm, just doing front desk receptionist work. And they also liked my work ethic and that I could learn quickly. And so they literally had me doing the paralegal stuff when I was 18 years old. So what I was doing at the time was I was filing bankruptcy petitions, and I would meet with the clients and I would go through the list of questions, and then I would let them know what the process was. This is what's going to happen after we file this, when you go to court, blah, blah, blah. I would tell them the whole thing. And I knew the process really well, but I'm giving them this information looking like I'm 14 years old with braces. So I think they just probably didn't feel like I was a credible person to listen to. So after that, I just ended up getting my paralegal certificate. It was an associate's degree at Truckee Meadows Community College in Reno. So it was kind of interesting that it happened that way. Like, I didn't get the paralegal associate's degree first. It was, I had this job, transferred to a different job, and it was like, oh, well, I'll get paid more money if I get this little degree.
I see.
And then, I just continued with it, even to this day,
Yeah. Okay, so your 20s were a spicy time with a lot of
wild
life lessons.
Times. Wild times.
Yeah, and I want to get back to that era in later on in the conversation, because it's super interesting. But basically, in your 20s, you did some modeling and commercial acting, which which earned you enough money to start your own clothing boutique in Reno called Gray Matter, which is where you picked up DJing because you had the store to yourself all day.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I didn't learn how to technically mix there, but I loved thrift store shopping. So I would go and I would buy records, like oldies records, like 70s, 80s records, and I would just play them in the store all day. But I had the best equipment. So when I went to buy the turntables, I was like, oh, I want to be able to have DJs in the shop. I just got the best quality DJ gear. Yeah, and I was just listening to records. I had the skate videos on. I had video games. I had the coolest gift boutique in the town that I was doing before it was. Everyone always tries to do the before it was popular thing, but this is true in Reno. Is I was selling Rebel 8, Upper Playground, Obey, things like that, but it just didn't work for Reno at the time.
Ahead of your time, Tessa.
15 years later, those companies went corporate.
Right? I'm curious how much of DJing was an expression of your love for music versus an outlet to channel all of the stuff that was happening in your life at the time.
Well, I wasn't DJing professionally at the time. It was just more of a hobby. But because I'm such a human that's based off mood, the 20s for me were a party time, but they were also a really, really sad time. So it's I'm putting on my Blonde Redhead and Saves the Day and The Good Life and Bright Eyes records. And I'm just crying, So, music is therapy. Yeah. So I'm grateful for music during that time to help me through the 20s. But, had the party music too. What's really funny, and don't tell any of my clients this, but I didn't listen to any of the 2000s club music that was happening, the hip hop that was going on, the Lil Jon and To the Window, to the Wall. I did not know that stuff at all. I was more of an indie electronic type person. But then when I started DJing parties and weddings, that's when I had to go back and go, oh my gosh, there's this whole chapter of 2000 to 2010 club music that I don't know that is really hip with the people that are throwing parties right now.
Retroactively experiencing a whole era of music.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
That's funny. So eventually you had to close your boutique and you moved to LA and got a job as a paralegal here in downtown, right?
Closing the boutique was 2003, 2004, I think. And I moved to LA in 2008. So between that 4 years, I went back to working at a law firm.
And as you were working as a paralegal in LA, you started to get hired doing DJ gigs?
Yeah, so let's see. I was working at a law firm in the Wells Fargo building. Oh, and one thing I didn't tell you, I'm going to skip back and forth because there's just so many things and so many memories that pop up. But I was a makeup artist as well. So when I first moved to LA in 2008, I was like, oh, I'm just going to get back with my commercial agent. And then I'll do modeling gigs when I can. And I'll do makeup for people. So I was trying to do those things when I first moved here, and it just wasn't working out. It just wasn't paying my bills. So that's when I ended up going back to paralegal work. So because I've always been that type of person that's been into like a lot of different hobbies, a lot of different interests. And I was looking on Craigslist and I saw an ad for a DJ. And I was like, well, shit, I got the equipment. Let's do this.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So then I started DJing at Verskusha in downtown LA. It's a like German sausage beer spot, but super hip, super trendy, really cool place. I got to play all of the music that I loved, but I wasn't blending well. I was just playing music. I was just selecting music because I always had good taste in music. I always knew that. It was learning how to blend that music so it made sense, so that it was seamless. So the funny story to me learning how to mix is that someone got my card and they wrote me an email and they're like, oh, your blends really aren't that tight. You should put some work into it. And I was like, shit, it hurt me so bad at the moment. But now that I look back at it, I'm like, if that person didn't say anything, how long would it have taken before somebody actually said something, to improve my skills? So even though it hurt at the time, I look back and I'm so grateful that person had the balls to do something like that. Also, how dare he? Like, you literally put in the extra effort to like write me that email.
Like to ask for somebody's card and then follow up with that criticism.
God, no. I got all kinds of funny stories.
So you did what? I think 2 years of freelance DJing, and it must have been successful because you got a bunch of really great gigs with a bunch of really big brand names. And
it took time. It did take time to get there because I started with the weddings. People were taking my card. I was doing the like indie electronic style music. Yeah. And they're like, we want this kind of music at our wedding. But yeah, when I was working at the law firm, I was working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. And usually on Thursday, Friday nights, I would stay at the law firm, and then at 8 o'clock, I would head over to the lounge to go DJ. Awesome. I had so much energy then. I was so youthful.
Okay, so it only took 2 years before you realized that, hey, I could do this full time. And and then I read actually that the impetus for you starting Prism DJs was that you kept hearing people saying that there's not that many female DJs. And you're like, there kind of are.
Like, oh, so when they would come up to me saying, oh, it was such a struggle to find a female DJ, I was thinking, oh my gosh, I know so many of them.
Yeah.
And obviously, one, I want to support women. Two, I already had the business skills to create the agency, and the statistics range, but there's 10, 20, 30% female DJs versus male DJs. Oh, and wow. I wanted to be able to close that gender gap.
I was going to ask you for your like basic mission for Prism DJs, but that was it, right?
That was it. Oh, yeah. That was it. I really want to highlight female DJs, be able to have a platform for them, be able to have clients find vetted, talented female DJs.
And, it's like...
All with doing something good,
That's awesome. I'm going to show a little video. I recently caught a VR DJ set that you did. It's pretty interesting and weird and fun. So I'm going to show this video and tell people a little bit about Prism DJs. Tessa Young's Prism DJs has become like a premier agency for booking all-female DJs. They represent about 20 DJs right now who spin a range of musical genres for weddings, corporate events, and nonprofit events. Prism DJs also provides scholarships to teenage girls to attend Camp Spinoff, where Tessa is a volunteer, as well as fundraising for Black Lives Matter and the Downtown Women's Center and the Los Angeles LGBT Center. Since the pandemic has pretty much put a pause on in-person events, Prism DJs has recently started performing live streams and virtual reality experiences like you're seeing on this video. The laws of physics do not apply in VR, so this event was totally weird and fun. You can find DJ Tessa and Prism DJs at prismdjs.com. That's PRISMDJS.com. Okay, dude. There was a black crow in front during your VR set, and I was like, Dude, that's my mascot. I am the Black Crow, and I get to chill with virtual DJ Tessa right in front.
I can't believe you were able to see the little Black Crow.
I got my eye on the crow all the time, man.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was really cool.
Definitely the future right now, 2021 at least, while we're staying at home.
Yeah, totally. Prism DJs took off really well, and you were able to start the whole company with like a small business loan. Mm-hmm. Can you talk a little bit about like learning to navigate that whole process of building this
actually,
thing?
I had some help. Amazing person. I just adore her so much. She helped me incredibly with my business plan. Her name's Young Harabedian. I found her through the Koreatown Youth Community Center. I think it's KYCC. So they offer small business development services. And she helped me with the business plan. She referred me over to the Asian Pacific Consortium of Employment, and they assisted with getting an SBA loan. So I started the business with an SBA loan of $18,000, and I put a lot of that into getting good photos for the DJs, getting promo video for the DJs, building the website, and marketing.
How many DJs did you start with?
It's expensive. Those costs added up. I started with about 4 or 5 DJs. And then the word got out, and I ended up working with about 30 female DJs. Not consistently, but being able to work with that many DJs was amazing to me, you know.
Did you have to learn a bunch of other skill sets to like kind of DIY stuff?
I think I had the business skill set. So I knew how to start the LLC. I knew how to structure the business. I knew how to make the website. I've been semi-tech savvy my whole life. But I think the biggest challenge for me starting was management. I don't do artist management, but you still have to manage your business, or you have to manage expectations for the DJs and for the clients. I had to learn how to communicate a lot better and be very clear, be very transparent. So I think what I had to learn the most when I first started the business was communication, better communication.
Yeah. Especially when you're like kind of a broker between various parties too. That's super important. During the pandemic, you guys have had to pivot to like remote DJing, and surprisingly, it's starting to like catch on. I have this preconception that it's like super weird to go watch a live show on screen or whatever. But I actually had a really good time at your VR set.
Yeah. You watched it on Twitch, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I missed out the immersive experience because I didn't have the hardware, but the avatars that people build are so fun. And like I said earlier, like physics don't really apply.
No, not at all.
So the dances are extra fun, and like people were just jumping like 50 feet in the air.
Yeah, you know, it's just alternate reality, right? But what's so interesting about it is that the way that we did this particular show is we had the green screen performance pre-recorded, but I went in as an avatar. So I was still there to like hang out with everybody, and you could say, oh, show me your best dance moves. And they have a bunch of emotes with like different dance moves. And my favorite dance move is like the push-up. So when Salt and Pepper's Push It came on, my remix, not my remix, but the remix I played of it, I was like, everybody do push-ups, you know, and they might have the push-up emote and start doing push-ups. So it's so awesome. Fun and interactive. And there's real humans behind all of these avatars. Yeah. And human etiquette applies in virtual reality, which is so crazy. Like you could literally go up to somebody and virtually punch them in the face and that person would be offended because you entered their personal space, you know? It's just incredibly fun. I want everybody to join us.
How did the idea originate?
Well, so, you know, as the pandemic happened, we lost a lot of work. But what I tried to do was still try to support the community and support the DJs. And so what we did was we did fundraiser events, as you had previously mentioned during the pandemic, was just trying to find ways to support our community. And the corporate events dried up. Obviously, weddings weren't happening. And I had to go back to work, you know, just the reality of it. So as you know, my background is paralegal work, and I was looking for jobs, and I found legal assistant paralegal job for a virtual reality company. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So they hired me right away. They're like, oh, you're a great match. Like you have paralegal experience and you're interested in the entertainment business. Mm-hmm. And when we have our meetings, our work meetings, we meet in world. But I'm having trouble paying attention because these people have such cool avatars. And I'm sitting there like staring and like analyzing their avatars. Like, oh, how can I make mine better? But anyway, but because I have to go to those meetings, I start learning how to use and like navigate around better, right? And then I discover the parties. These people are having parties all the time. And I'm like, oh, wow, I can showcase our female DJs in virtual reality because it's still kind of like a male-dominated world in virtual reality. So that's my new plan, is to be able to still continue to showcase our female DJs, Prism DJs, on a different platform. I don't know what's after VR.
Right?
This is the peak.
Well, yeah, it's the peak for now. It's cool that you're able to kind of open up this new platform of opportunities for, I guess, all of the DJs at Prism. Where do you think that like having this new can of worms is going to take Prism DJs? Like, where do you want to take Prism DJs? It's
definitely awesome marketing material. And I just like so authentically love it that I'm having a blast putting together the projects, the production for it. I'm not putting together I work with like a huge team of people that create that production. You would be so surprised how many people it takes to create that. So I'm actually working with Chromatic team out of Australia. There's 4 people on his team that handle the live streaming, the world building, the communications. And then Jesse Morales from Livestream Suite does the green screen. Mm-hmm. I'm the one organizing everything on the back end and facilitating it all. And then obviously the DJ is the talent and they're the star of the show. So by then you've got 15 people, almost 15 people working on the project.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's quite a bit of a production. It doesn't have to be that much of a production in there. Like you can literally go in with your avatar and just start DJing as long as you can get clean sound. But as far as where Prism DJs goes from here, I'm so excited to have those videos to show my clients. I would love Prism DJs to get more into the technology space and DJ more technology events and more corporate events.
Yeah, I think that's a really great fit because so many people are working from home now, and you still need team building. You still need FaceTime with each other. And this is like a really cool opportunity to do that.
Shout out to Sansar, the best VR platform out there.
So Sansar's the group or the technology that's been enabling your VR events. And they're fairly new, right? Just a couple years old?
Yeah, startup. They are a spinoff from a company called Second Life. And Sansar was acquired by Wiki Technologies in March 2020. So they're coming up on their 1-year anniversary, less than a year old. But honestly, and I'm not just saying it, they have the best graphics on their platform. Like, when you walk around in there, everything is just so visually stunning.
Yeah. And there's like tons of work, people building custom worlds for each event and stuff. So cool. Yeah. A whole new can of worms. It's like really a fun type of experience that I think a lot of people will gravitate to as they discover it, basically. Yeah. I'm going to show people another photo. Actually, it's a still image of the Prism DJs website. Tessa Young's all-woman DJ agency is called Prism DJs. And they recently made the pivot to live streaming and VR DJ sets, which have been especially successful for corporate events during the pandemic. And you can find more about Prism DJs at prismdjs.com. Dude, I'm so stoked for you.
Thank you for sharing that. It's been a fun journey, that's for sure.
So let's get back to talking about your 20s.
Oh my God. Well, isn't that what the 20s are for everybody, is to just fuck it all up?
That's what I was going to say. I accomplished a lot of stuff in my 20s, but I feel like I was just flailing like somebody who doesn't know how to swim, getting tossed in the pool and just like, oh, this kind of works and that kind of works.
Yeah, no, I thought I was so grown and I knew everything, but I did not at all.
So there's a really awesome podcast that you did called the Amani Experience. Did I pronounce that right?
Yes.
With
Amani,
DJ Amro.
Amro, yeah.
I learned so much about you from that podcast. I think if people are interested, they should check it out. But
Yeah,
basically,
he's a great interviewer.
there was a little segment where you talked about how tumultuous your 20s was. And I was wondering if you could share like as much as you want from that experience.
I've definitely learned from all those things. I guess it could start with when I took a break from paralegal work and I moved out to LA for a brief stint. I was trying to do like the modeling and commercial acting work. And, you know, there's just so much rejection that comes along with that. So those feelings of rejection sucked. And then I ended up saving that money, going back to Reno. And I was passionate about opening up this boutique. At the time, I put everything into like these business endeavors that I do, right? So just sitting in the store and not watching anything sell and thinking that you're making your best efforts for marketing.
How old were you?
Really, I was 22, 23.
Oh man, that's super young.
I know, right? To have this like retail boutique. But I think I can't express how like sad that feels to like not have your business work.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was going through a breakup with a long-term boyfriend, and that was like heartbreaking. Like I was so depressed, I couldn't even like lift myself out of bed. Then I rushed into a relationship with someone I like him as a person, but definitely not compatible.
Yeah.
When I look back at it, we were drinking a lot, and that's what Reno was for me. Is like we were just drinking and partying all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm prone to having depressive feelings, prone to depression, and the drinking just like magnifies that, right? So I go into like full-blown drinking. I would consider it like alcoholism, full-blown depression. Get a DUI. So
Pylon.
It was pylon. Then I had to file for bankruptcy because I was $60,000 in debt from the retail boutique that I had. But get this, let's just circle back. Remember I told you I was a bankruptcy paralegal when I graduated from high school? I went and I represented myself at court and filled out all my paperwork. So I'm a resourceful gal. But it was just like hit after hit after hit. I mean, there was more that happened during that time, but it was more personal. So I'm not going to share it. But yeah, it's just like, I think I don't even know how I survived my 20s really. And then 2008, I moved to LA.
Yeah. Was that move to LA sort of like, all right, I need a big change to shake this up? Was that part of the decision making? Yeah.
I wasn't going anywhere when I was in Reno. I was just going to continue to drink and drink and drink. And I mean, if you have problems and you don't resolve those, even if you move to another town, you're going to take your problems with you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you have to figure out a way to address those issues. But I think what was great is when I moved here, I didn't have all the friends to like, the bars are so easily accessible there. So I didn't have a lot of friends. I wasn't going to the bars, and I was just distracted by new interests when I was here. So I think the distraction of LA really helped, like just all the culture that's here. I was able to go to any like art museums. They're at our fingertips. And then I met my boyfriend, and he doesn't drink at all. Mm-hmm. So that lessened the craving for me to drink, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I still have a beer every once in a while, but I do notice that I get sad when I drink, and I know I shouldn't do it, but I just keep doing it anyway.
Well, you know,
but
cool.
it's not the point that it was back in the day.
It's cool to have that support system now, and also know enough about yourself where you can moderate and call yourself out when you don't moderate. Yeah. I always do that. I'm like, I'm not drinking again. Why do I do this? And then 2 days later, I'm like, I'll just have one beer. I'll be fine. Just that big change of environment really helps me to kind of reset. We all need a reset every once in a while, right? We're all going to need a reset once we're in the clear of this pandemic, right? Totally. I want to travel this year. So I turned 40 in 2020, and my business was doing so great. Prism DJs was doing so great. I was like, we're just going to fucking kill it this year. And I knew all of the high profile event production companies that hired DJs. You know, I had a good marketing plan.
like I said, turning 40, me and my friends, we were going to go to Greece, Bali, Japan. I was going to travel the world.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And then it all came crumbling down. But it's okay. You know, there's, I love the fact that I went back to work as a legal assistant and then learning this whole VR space. That was just, you know, one of the best things that happened during the pandemic. So.
Yeah, I think that crumbling
silver
down
linings
is also kind of just, it gives you more other opportunities. So I've been thinking about it like that too. Like there's a bunch of other opportunities that I've had that I wouldn't have had because of this pandemic, and a bunch of new learnings that I've had that I wouldn't have had. So yeah, it's cool. During like a lot of this like hardcore times in your 20s, I know that family is a big part of your life, and I'm curious like what role they played, what relationship you had with them during this difficult time.
Well, they've always been really supportive of me, always helped me. My parents helped me finance part of the first business, but never again. We're gonna see another business go down. But I also had a lot of guilt because I lost some of their money.
Yeah.
And while I was going through all the bullshit, I just really didn't want to burden them with anything else because I had already burdened them already. And my sister has always been there for me. So she was always a great, I mean, both of my parents are great to talk to, but my sister was amazing, you know, amazing support system. Yeah, you know, they were just there to listen, which is good. But I didn't share everything because, like I said, just didn't want to give them too much, you know, burden them too much.
Yeah. You know, I recently recorded a short interlude episode of Coffee with BAO where I talk about, you know, all of us being a work in progress, and that's totally fine. Like that, not just fine, that's like reality. That just is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so
constantly a work in progress.
Right. And I'm curious, outside of Prism DJs and outside of the business stuff, is there like a one or two personal things that you're trying to level up on right now as a person?
Oh my goodness. Business is my hobby and interest. So that makes it really difficult. Okay. So I've always wanted to get my real estate license.
Ooh.
So I am on the final chapter of the final course for real estate school. And this week I'm going to be taking the final exam for that last course so I can move on to take the test to get my real estate license. I've just always wanted to do it. So that's why I'm doing it. And if it happens to be that I end up as a real estate agent as well, it's just another thing to add to that list of entrepreneurial items.
That's awesome. I love that you're such a Renaissance woman, I guess, when you
I think I just
have an
like
idea.
learning.
Yeah, right? You have an idea, you just like find out how to do it. And I love that about you.
Yeah. If I say I'm going to do something, my friends and family know that I'm going to do it.
That's awesome. I think a lot of your success also obviously has to do with you just simply being like an awesome person.
Oh, thank you.
But there, you know, like the more I learn about you, the more I see the aspect of perseverance, which has been a through line in your whole history, right? I'm curious whether you have like a hot tip that you can share with me about knowing when to persevere versus when to pivot and get the F out.
I'll take it from maybe like a business perspective.
Sure.
So, yeah, with business, there's ups and downs, right? So you have to know that that's going to happen. It's like 1 minute you're like, I'm successful. And the next minute, you know, I don't know if you ever saw that meme, you know, the success. And then all of a sudden you're like, do I need to close my business? Which is kind of like how I felt this year. But I think if the business is just not working and you've done everything you can to try to make it work, or you're just not happy anymore, I kind of have a problem with that one. Sometimes when you're not happy with something, sometimes you have to just keep persevering. Or if it just doesn't feel like authentic to you, if you don't feel connected to whatever you're doing anymore, that's the time to GTFO. For sure.
I think you have a really good point there about evaluating your connection to what you're doing, right? And like, regularly just asking yourself, am I vibing to this thing?
Yeah.
Does this feel authentic to me as a person?
Yeah.
Wow.
For sure.
That's great advice, Tessa. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I wish I had a better answer for that one. That's a tough question. That's what you're here for.
Boom!
Is the tough questions.
I got you.
Yeah.
I had such a really, really, really good time, as always, chatting with you. And I really appreciate that you shared your personal story, too. It's fascinating and inspiring. So thank you, Tessa.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. You're the best, BAO.
Oh, man. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to do like a little outro thing, but don't hang up because I'm going to come back and say like a actual goodbye to you.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Okay, guys, my guest today has been Tessa Young, aka DJ Tessa. She has an all-female DJ agency called Prism DJs, and you can find Prism DJs at prismdjs.com, and I'm gonna spell it to you so you don't think it's prison. PRISMDJS.com. If you had a good time with us today and you want to support me, you can subscribe or share this episode. Also, if you can financially support me or buy me a coffee or whatever, you can go to coffeewithbao.com and do that. And I thank you so much for having Coffee with BAO, and we'll see you next time. Peace out!